So what is that framework that we've been looking at to try to consult with our clients to try to keep things moving forward? There's no way that we can keep things moving forward in the same way that they have been prior to the COVID-19 outbreak, but we can use this framework to identify areas where sites may be requiring assistance and patients may be requiring assistance, and how can we bring to bear our expertise as consultants, marketing experts, and provisioners of patient engagement and experience offerings? Well, there are 4 areas that we've been talking about internally at BBK and we've been asked about by our clients, and they are for the studies that are active but not yet enrolling. They're going through a planning phase. They're getting ready for first patient in at some point in the future. What about those trials? What can they do? The second area that we've been talking about is the trials that are currently enrolling patients. They're in that patient recruitment window. What's happening with them? They're facing a lot different issues at this point here, of course. The suspension of activities at many sites is making that very, very difficult. And so enrollment agility is becoming much more important there too. Then the third area is for studies that are active but no longer enrolling. They still have patients coming through. Perhaps last patient out has not occurred yet. So managing the patient's throughput in the study, ensuring that all of the data that you're collecting is still valuable, is very, very important. Finally, the last area that we've been talking about is innovation. What does innovation mean to this, to our world right now? And that's going to be a very important thing we'll address at the end. So the first one is, again, the active studies that are not yet enrolling. Obviously, these are the kinds of studies that are in the planning phase. Yes, it's important for us to be addressing the health and safety of everybody around us, but it is not the time to take our eye off the ball. So for those kinds of studies, now you're in the perfect moment to plan to make sure that all of your ducks are in a row so that once that new normal begins, you'll be ready to hit the ground running with some strategies to ensure that any time that was lost can be rapidly made up. And I guess that really includes the idea of ensuring that whatever recruitment or other plans you had are accelerated. You're thinking about the acceleration of recruitment for those particular studies. You're building patient materials, communications materials, whether that's direct to the patient that's handed to them by the sites, whether that's direct to patient advertising. You're building the site communications materials and so on and so forth as well. Things that can help facilitate a more aggressive and faster enrollment once the study gets going. So all of those things can now receive the proper care and attention. Sometimes those things take a lot longer than you would imagine to create, to go through review and approval from the clinical team, through the legal teams, through the ethics committees, IRBs, and then to be produced and distributed. It takes quite some time. So now is the time to reset, make sure that you have everything there so that these things can be in place for first patient in. Perfect. The second construct we've been looking at is those studies that are actively enrolling right now, that are facing site suspensions. The things that we've been talking to sponsors about is how to deal with that in a way that ensures that the patient experience is not disrupted completely, and that they can be helped to deal with this new realization that perhaps the site that they had selected or wanted to be attendant at that's closest to them may not be available at this point. We have mechanisms in place to be able to reroute patients to other sites if that's possible, so that they can continue their journey on in the study and perhaps not miss any visits, so that the data that you collect is continues to be of a high quality. Now, that also means that patients who are coming into the sites are facing difficulties also in and hardship. Some of these people are losing their jobs as well. I mean, somewhere in the region of 5 to 10 million people, new people, are actually claiming unemployment benefits at this point in time. The sites themselves are facing issues in reimbursing patients for their study-related expenses, and the mechanisms of the sites have not changed. This means that patients don't get paid immediately, typically, or reimbursed immediately. So what is something that we can do to actually reduce the active burden at the sites in ensuring that the financial needs of the patients and caregivers are met? Where BBK has one of the best, the easiest to use, call it RSG card. It's a reloadable debit card that sites can ensure that patients are reimbursed for their time and expenses within about 20 seconds. That is something that removes a huge amount of burden from the site and is very, very relieving to the patients too. So the travel and reimbursement are huge for those patients. There's also things that you can do to encourage people to be and staying in the studies in those situations as well. Those would include things like setting up the ability for patients to do virtual visits, medication delivery to those patients, so they don't have to go to the sites, and perhaps even meal services, meal delivery services. A lot of people are scared at this time to actually go out into the supermarkets, and there can be some shortages of things that people want. So this is just a really nice way of helping people during this time where perhaps they don't have the same kind of access to restaurants or anything else like that they would normally use to feed their families. Moving on into the active, no longer enrolling studies. These are the studies where you're facing a time where, again, there could be suspensions of site activity. You want to ensure that patients are coming in for those visits in order to maintain the data quality. Otherwise, it could mean that you have to start to enroll patients again to replace those patients that are not necessarily even, I'm not going to call it withdrawing from the study. It's not about withdrawal. It's about just being too scared to come into the sites or having the sites actively suspending any kinds of non-COVID-19 related visits. Finally, the final construct is innovation. And innovation right now is seen as being something that is inherently risky. Many times, if we're proposing that we do something to a client, the first question from the client, the sponsor, is, have you done that before? What's the data? What's the return on the investment? What are the key performance indicators? I want to know exactly whether you've had experience doing this in the therapeutic area, and so on and so forth. No one study is the study that anyone wants to be the guinea pig for any particular new innovation or innovative way to do something. However, this situation has necessitated innovation. So what was inherently seen as risky is now seen as something that is de-risking the enterprise. And that simply means that things like telehealth, virtual visits, delivery of medications, provisioning of devices, e-consenting, and engagement using those devices as well. All those things that many sponsors have yet to try. They have to try. They're forced into those situations. So it's doing something like that, working through things like Zoom. And we've all suddenly realized that instant messaging and working through Zoom, it's time consuming, it's difficult, but at the same time, it's something that's doable. It's helpful to us. And so we have to embrace that innovation. And I'm hoping that continues on into the post-COVID-19 era. I think it's a very positive thing that's coming out of this. Is going to be the way that the industry has to embrace or embraces innovation. I hope it doesn't turn back in on itself at the end of this. So anyway, one of the things that's new obviously is me doing this. I hope this has been educative in some way. It's been a strange, it's kind of a surreal experience just talking into a camera with a light facing me. I feel like I'm being interrogated in some way, but I'm going to sign off. I hope you all stay safe, healthy and well, and I hope I see you all again very, very soon.